Happy Friday, everyone! So today we're going to be talking about what kinds of observation we can make as scientists. So as scientists, we have to be constantly observing the world and being able to share what we see in the world with other scientists in the world. So I want you guys to think to yourselves about some things that you could observe in the world and report out to other scientists. So something might be how tall a tree is. So height of a tree would be a great example. Another thing you could talk about is what color flowers' petals are. So you could talk about colors. What are some other things that you guys can think about that a scientist could measure in the world?
Temperature.
Temperature is a great one. What else?
Texture? Does that make sense?
Yeah, texture.
Like
So
a
something could be
sandpaper?
smooth or rough. Let's get two more things.
How thick a liquid is.
Viscosity of a liquid.
Oh.
One more thing.
Electrical charge.
Electrical charge. So if you look at these two lists that we have, you have things that you can measure in numbers and things that you can measure more by looking at it and feeling at it. So we have two different words for these. These are called quantitative traits, and these are called qualitative traits. I like to think of it as qualitative traits talk about qualities that things have, like color or texture, and quantitative traits talk about quantities, so you can measure them in numbers. So what I want you guys to do is to break off into little groups, so groups of 2 or 3, so you guys are going to be a group of 3, and I want you guys to discuss what some of the advantages and disadvantages of measuring quantitatively and qualitatively could be for scientists.
Well, if you measure quantitatively, then you have a way of comparing between people, whereas qualitative, maybe people would have different perceptions.
That's true. Also with quantitative, you're able to run mathematical equations on things and get new data from that. Whereas with qualitative aspects, you can't do that.
Yeah. And with quantitative, it might be harder for people that aren't scientific to understand what you're presenting, whereas qualitative could be used for a broader audience.
That's true.
Well, and also with, yeah, no, that's good.
All right, so what are some of the things that you guys came up with in your small groups?
Right. Well, one thing is that with quantitative observations, you're able to use that in mathematical formulas and get new information from that, whereas you can't do that with qualitative data.
Perfect. You can use math on quantitative observations, but you can't use math on qualitative observations.
You said that qualitative might be easier to understand.
Ooh, that's really good. It could be very easier to understand.
But it can
It's
also-
easy to say, this is green and this is blue.
But you can also have varying data because of that.
So word for that is subjective. Qualitative observations are subjective because each person has a little bit of a different perception of what a color green could be or what a smooth texture could be. So they are subjective. Do we have any cons for quantitative?
It can be difficult to understand if you're not really numbers oriented.
All right, perfect. So just to summarize really quickly, qualitative observations are observations that are based on the quality of something. So you have color or texture are great examples of these. Quantitative are things that you can measure by numbers, height, electrical charge, those kinds of things. And they both have their pros and cons, so they are both really useful for scientists as they go. So now we are going to do a little bit of a cheer to remember these traits. All right, so this is a repeat after me song.
This is a repeat after me song.
Qualitative.
Qualitative.
Making observations
Making observations
based on quality.
based on quality.
Quantitative.
Quantitative.
Making observations
Making observations
based on numbers.
based